Imagine boarding a flight in Singapore, knowing that your next landing would come almost a full day later, on the opposite side of the planet. For most of aviation history, a journey like this was considered impractical. The distance was simply too extreme. A passenger aircraft needed enormous amounts of fuel to travel that far, but every extra kilogram of fuel created another problem. More weight meant more fuel was required just to carry that additional weight through the sky. Eventually, engineers reached a frustrating limit. The aircraft could carry more fuel, but carrying more fuel made the aircraft heavier. The heavier aircraft burned even more fuel. The numbers continued working against them. Then, in October 2018, Singapore Airlines introduced a non-stop flight between Singapore and New York that would remain airborne for nearly 19 hours. It became one of the longest commercial flights ever attempted. But the surprising part was not that engineers built a bigger aircraft. They didn't. Instead, they had to rethink what a long-range passenger aircraft should actually carry. Because making the impossible flight possible would require removing something that every airline normally wants more of: passengers. But removing seats created a new question. Could an aircraft designed to carry fewer people actually make sense as a commercial flight? Removing passengers solved one problem, but it created another. For an airline, empty seats are not an advantage. They represent lost revenue. Every commercial aircraft is designed around a balance between weight, distance, and the number of people paying for the journey. Yet the physics of ultra-long-range flight forced engineers to challenge that assumption. The biggest obstacle was fuel. Adding more fuel increased the aircraft's range, but it also increased the aircraft's weight. That extra weight required additional fuel just to keep the aircraft moving through the sky, creating a cycle where the solution slowly became part of the problem. Airbus approached the challenge by modifying the existing A350-900 into an ultra-long-range version. The aircraft received changes that allowed it to carry significantly more fuel while preserving the efficiency needed for a journey lasting almost 19 hours. But even with more fuel, the aircraft still faced a difficult balance. It had to carry enough fuel to cross the planet. It had to remain efficient enough to make the flight practical. And it had to carry enough passengers to make the route worth operating. Singapore Airlines eventually made the decision that changed the entire concept. The economy cabin disappeared. The aircraft would carry only 67 business-class seats and 94 premium economy seats. A passenger aircraft designed to fly farther would first have to carry fewer people. Removing passengers and adding fuel made the aircraft lighter and extended its range. But the flight was still far from simple. A journey lasting nearly 19 hours would push commercial aviation into territory few passenger aircraft had ever experienced. This was not just a longer version of a normal long-haul flight. It required a completely different way of planning and operating. Airbus started with the A350-900, an aircraft already built around efficiency. Its lightweight composite structure and advanced aerodynamics provided the foundation, but the ultra-long-range version needed further changes. Engineers increased fuel capacity while carefully protecting the efficiency that made the aircraft capable of such extreme distances. Every small improvement mattered. A minor reduction in drag, a more precise fuel calculation, or a better understanding of weather patterns could determine whether the aircraft reached its destination with comfortable margins. But the greatest challenge was not simply carrying enough fuel. Unlike shorter flights, there were fewer opportunities to recover from unexpected problems. Stronger headwinds, changing weather, or route adjustments could quickly affect the carefully planned balance between distance and remaining fuel. The aircraft could now fly farther than almost any passenger jet before it. But the real question was whether it could reliably handle everything that happened during those 19 hours in the sky. The aircraft could now cross half the planet without stopping. But another problem remained. Could the human body handle what the aircraft was capable of doing? Aviation had solved the challenge of distance, but it had created a new challenge of endurance. On a flight lasting almost 19 hours, passengers would experience changing time zones, disrupted sleep patterns, and a journey longer than many people's entire waking day. The aircraft could fly through sunrise, sunset, and another sunrise without landing. The passengers could not simply be treated as extra weight inside the cabin. Singapore Airlines redesigned the interior around this reality. Removing economy class was not only a decision about reducing weight. It created more personal space and allowed the cabin to be designed around comfort during an unusually long journey. Lighting schedules helped passengers adjust their internal clocks. Meal services were carefully timed to support rest. The cabin environment was optimized to reduce fatigue and make the aircraft feel less like a temporary seat and more like a controlled living space. The goal was no longer just reaching New York without stopping. The goal was proving that people could remain comfortable while doing something their bodies were never designed for. Because the final challenge of the world's longest flight was not keeping the aircraft in the air. It was keeping the humans inside it ready for landing. When Singapore Airlines launched its nonstop Singapore, New York service, it was not simply creating the world's longest commercial flight. It was challenging the way airlines had always thought about distance. For decades, the assumption was simple: longer routes required larger aircraft, more fuel, and more passengers. But this flight proved something different. The solution was not adding more. It was removing what was unnecessary. The aircraft carried fewer passengers, carried more fuel, used advanced engineering, and redesigned the entire travel experience around a journey lasting almost 19 hours. No single improvement made the flight possible. The achievement came from hundreds of decisions working together, each one solving a small part of a much larger problem. The A350 ultra-long range did not make the world smaller. It changed what airlines believed was possible. A route once considered unrealistic became a scheduled commercial service, proving that the hardest challenges in aviation are rarely solved by one dramatic invention. They are solved through patience, precision, and thousands of carefully calculated improvements. Because sometimes the greatest breakthroughs in aviation do not come from building something bigger. They come from discovering exactly what can be taken away.